Welcome to 412 Sports Talk, the #1 podcast for Pittsburgh sports. Steelers, we talk it. Penguins, we talk it. Pirates, yeah, we talk it. With the biggest guests.
Bob Pompiani, Pittsburgh legend. Mayor Bill Peduto, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, is on with us. Doran Dickerson, West Allegheny legend.
Trey Essex, welcome.
Available on iTunes and Spotify. Hosted by Mad Chad Nolan.
It over too much. Well, now he's not turning it over at all.
And Eddie Provident.
We've got the best team in football.
And now, 412 Sports Talk.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 412 Sports Talk podcast, brought to you, as always, by MCM Studios in Pittsburgh. With us today is we've got an enemy on the enemy in the front lines today, guys. But we're welcoming Michael DiNicola. He is of Mike. Mike is with the Orange and Black Pack blog website. I mean, they've got their Facebook.
It's just a Facebook page now. It used to be a blog, but like I said, I had kids and then all that.
So, Mike, even though you're a Flyers fan, and I know we're not technically supposed to be talking during the season, we thought it would be a good idea to get your take on the Ron Hextall hiring and maybe what Penguins fans can be expecting. So, Mike, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, no problem at all. No, 7:30 on a Wednesday night. I'm not really doing much. Well, I was a little surprised he wanted my input because I don't know exactly what to expect from Ron Hextall, only because you guys are in a particular position where I said it the other day. You guys still have Sidney Crosby, still got Letang, you still got Malkin. Your window is still a little open. From the outside, that's what it looks like. And I never count out your window while you have those superstars on your team. Well, maybe Malkin and Crosby. Letang's kind of having it tough this past couple of seasons.
Yeah.
But when Ron came into Philadelphia, we knew that Paul Holmgren had spent 5-6 years chasing after cups, being very aggressive. It's kind of a mixed bag of emotion in Philadelphia, depending on who you ask. I'm a little bit of appreciative of the aggressiveness, but I understood why Ron came in and he had the philosophy of just kind of like keeping the NHL product kind of stale and paused for a while it's kind of like a duck on a pond, where the feet are constantly kicking. So as soon as he came into the organization, he made an impact by flipping some guys that are some regulars that are on the roster, like a Hartnell. He traded Coburn. He made some very nice moves, but we needed to remain, especially in the beginning, we needed to remain patient. But right now, I'm not entirely sure if that's what you guys need, because, like I said, you still got your stars. That window is still a little bit open. I mean, you can call anyone up from your AHL club, and there's going to score 40 on each side of. That's such a pain in the ass. But that's my take. I think I'm actually very interested to see the objective NHL hockey fan in me is interested to see what the dynamic between him and Burke is going to be.
Well, that's what the Brian Burke, I was excited about Hextall. I went through all of his transactions and I was very surprised at wow, he acquired a lot of skill guys. I was blown away by how much skill he acquired during his tenure.
Well, through the draft,
and especially through the draft, and that is the complete opposite of how we have built things here in Pittsburgh. So right. I'm wondering, he's probably going to be the opposite of a Jim Rutherford. I would imagine, right? Where he's not going to go out and just start giving assets away like he's Michael Jackson's real estate.
No. Well, no, that's not what he did here. Yeah. Like I said, he took some regulars that had just been on the roster for a little while and pushed them out the door. When it comes to free agency. Now, if Hextall comes in with the exact same frame of mind that he had going in with Philadelphia, then I'm going to tell you, I hope your patience is good and intact.
There's no patience here.
There's no patience here.
Not in Pittsburgh. Not in Pittsburgh.
But he's also come out and he said he's not a one-trick pony. So he realizes it's a different situation that he's stepping into in Pittsburgh than it was in Philly back in 2013, 2014 when he took over the GM position. But when it comes to drafting, a lot of people will tell you that he's an excellent drafter. He's certainly fixed us up to be successful for the next, I would say, 5 to 6 years. We still have some prospects of his that are climbing the ranks below. Of course, a lot of them have bled onto the NHL roster, and looking at our record, we're doing pretty well. If you ask me, toward the end of his tenure, with about 3 years remaining, I started kind of getting ready for him to hit the gas. I'm like, we're not signing big names on from free agency, which was great because I just think free agency is a bog to begin with. But when guys like Ryan O'Reilly or Mark Stone, like those types of players start coming up and the news is that they're available, and I'm sort of like just like poking at them like, Ron, what are we doing? Is all we're going to do is just going to build this team through the draft and we're going to keep 3 regulars, or two mainly, and Giroux and Voracek, which, they had their prime years. And of course, they're nothing like a Malkin or a Crosby, but they had their prime years during that 2014 to 2018. And it's like, I was waiting for him to kind of complement them with a little added NHL oomph, rather than like, some of the scrap heap guys that he signed in free agency, rather than kind of praying or hoping that the guys that he had drafted, the kids that he had drafted, would just kind of hit a fast track and hit the NHL roster a little bit sooner than we thought. None of that happened. We all just kind of sat around for those 3 years. Like, what the hell are we doing? When are we going to take that next step? You know what I mean? Because we still have a very good Giroux. We still got a very good Voracek. Couturier is going to be in his prime. These guys are racking up points. They're having performances that are some of the best that the Flyers have had.
Right.
And how are we going to utilize that? How are we going to take advantage of that? And I never saw that toward the end of his tenure.
So you felt like he built something that was like on the cusp, but then he didn't have the foresight to piece the rest of it together, basically, is what it sounds like.
I think he had the foresight. He had a plan, and he stuck to it. And if that, I would say that's probably a good quality.
Mm-hmm.
Although
because Rutherford had no plan. He was impulsive.
He was a gunslinger.
He was, absolutely.
Especially the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, but that's why, like, enter Burke, who has a bias for action. Burke is very aggressive. He's got. I know he's been in the league for a long time. He's been in business a long time, but he's a great networking guy. He knows everyone that's in the business, and not just, I'm talking about GMs. I'm talking about scouts.
Right.
And I think it's a good yin and yang that you've got there, or I think it could be a good yin and yang that you've got there. Ron Hextall, who's very much conservative, sticks to the plan. Burke, who kind of like likes to light fire under people's asses and get things moving. I think that has the potential to be a very good, efficient.
So you think Burke might be able to be the one to say, hey, maybe nudge you, like you said, you were trying to nudge him. You think Burke would be that guy to do that?
Right. And because when we tried nudging Hextall, when ownership and some upper management had tried nudging Hextall to get him kind of off that track and propel it a little bit forward faster, that's kind of when his little circle started to shrink. It was him and some of his scouts. He didn't have very good communication with upper management. He wasn't really communicating with the head coach, Hextall at the time. So it seemed like a whole lot of silos in the franchise, but with no bridges. And there was just no collaboration. And so it depends on who you ask. It depends on who you believe. But, upper management kind of got tired of that. And they were like, Ron, we understand you have a vision, but dude, we have to make some money. We have to get into the playoffs. We have to win a playoff round. I mean, last year, beating the Canadiens, hardly, but beating the Canadiens was our first playoff win since you guys.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So you can imagine just sitting around waiting for these things to kind of turn into tangible NHL assets. It was a long, long wait, and he wasn't prepared to get off that track. He was prepared to go a little bit longer. And looking back in hindsight, I kind of thank him for that, but also at the same time, I was ready for him to move on.
See, my take on Burke is that he's kind of, I wonder if they didn't bring him in as like a damage control or like somebody to kind of that knows his way, like what you said, has a lot of connections, knows his way around the NHL, because we've talked about it a few times on this show, but we've got some issues brewing in our AHL team. with the sexual assault allegations towards one of the coaches. And so,
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's some allegations that are pretty. The details are pretty rough.
And then not only that, there's also reports that Rutherford and David Morehouse, who is, I mean, he's just the CEO. He doesn't have anything to do with hockey operations. I felt like I'm hearing that they were clashing. So again, that makes me think that's why Brian Burke was hired, so that Hextall wouldn't have to deal with those guys. Sure. He deals with Brian Burke, and that's it.
So between those two things, I really wonder if Burke kind of was brought in to be more of the damage control and like the PR, kind of control everything as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because it even got out there was this hasn't been confirmed, but there was a rumor, and it was alleged in that in the whole news article that brought out that sexual assault case that Billy Guerin told both parties involved to keep quiet about it.
Oh, you know what? I did actually hear about that. Yeah.
So if that's the case, they're going to need somebody like a Brian Burke that plays no games. He's kind of that in-your-face tough, and he may be the cleanup guy.
And he could attract that drama away from Hextall.
Yeah.
But the good news is for you guys is that Hextall avoids bullshit.
Yeah, and I actually I'm with Chad. I like the Hextall signing. To me, it screams rebuild. I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. Maybe it's a rebuild on the fly, but
rebuild's a tough word. I would say what we talked about last week, Eddie, is that I don't think rebuild's even possible right now. I think it's a step back, and I want Hextall to step back and look at everything, assess everything, and just like I said, I wouldn't even be mad this year if Hextall came in and maybe got rid of some contracts that were just, these guys they're not going to make or break the team. Let's get some draft picks. Let's get some cap space and kind of regroup.
Well, yeah,
not rebuild, but regroup. Yeah.
Right. And if our cap situation was a little better, I think perhaps maybe one of you said rebuild on the fly, and that's probably closer to what we were doing than a complete rebuild. I mean, anybody who's going through a complete rebuild, they're going to sell off everything. I mean,
like the Rangers.
Terry's going to go. Voracek is going to go. Neither one of them had any no move clauses or no trade clauses on their contracts. Giroux has an NMC, or he has an NMC now. He was the only one who had a no move clause. However, I don't know what exactly your cap situation is like, or what that.
It's not good.
It's not good. And with this flat cap, I was going to say that you're probably going to see a hybrid between what the Rangers went through, that rebuild on the fly. I mean, they reloaded in 2 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not the greatest team right now, but you can tell that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in a few years. So I think it's going to be a median between what they went through and what we went through. Because I mean, like I said, I know that your cap situation's bad. I know that we have this flat cap for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and it's going to be difficult to maneuver throughout that. But yeah.
Well, that's why I was excited about the Hextall thing, though, is that looking at his track record with Philly, I don't see any contracts that stand out that go, oh my God, what the hell were they thinking there? Like, if anything, there was some good contracts that I was surprised maybe that they got those guys that low.
Well, he re-signed Couturier to a very, very great deal.
That's one of the best contracts in the league.
Yeah.
Well, leading up to that, he hadn't gone over 39 points at all when he signed his extension. Then it was year 3 into that extension when he actually scored more than 39 points, and he blew up for that 76-point season or 78-point season, whatever it was. And then he put back-to-back 70-point seasons.
But again, maybe that was Hextall's foresight of locking him up long-term, knowing
Yeah, I think the most impressive part about Hextall's ability to put guys on a contract was there was absolutely no clauses on any of the contracts that he negotiated, including Voracek's, which I'm going to bring up. I mean, I think that's probably a little bit too long, probably 2 years too long. Looking at it now, it's I think $100,000 less than what Giroux's cap hit is, and it's 2 years past what Giroux's is. So it's we're going to be chewing on that for a little bit. But again, there's no clauses, so he can be moved. But no, I think Ron's specialty was really finding creative ways of opening up space, allowing some breathing room by flipping guys, taking and attaching them to picks, pushing them out the door for some low budget assets in return and draft picks.
That sounds good to me.
That's what we need.
Well,
we have.
I know that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just. We haven't had a string of first round picks in a while, and the ones that we've had even going into draft day, we've decided to pump off for guys like Ryan Reeves.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. Is Hextall? Is he still just from what you like from your experience with him? He's not one of these like we need to get guys that are going to come in and break heads and the grit and the big size. He's not one of those guys, right?
No. In fact,
Yeah.
it's just kind of opposite. I mean, did he sign a couple of thumpers?
He got Radko Gudas, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what he did was, he pushed Coburn out the door for Gudas and a couple of picks, which down the road it turned into Travis Konechny.
Yeah, and for me,
when he's drafting, him and his scouts, they're looking at skill first. They're looking at speed.
You got me salivating over here.
Yeah, and see, that's what I remember in the last few years about the Flyers is it wasn't the Flyers of 7 or 8 years ago where it was a slugfest every game. You know, I like the last couple seasons have been, oh man, they're fast. They've got a lot of skill on the ice, and they're outscoring us now. They're not beating us by beating us up. They're out, they're flying around the ice. And so if he's going to come in and bring that back to Pittsburgh, that makes me a happy guy.
Well, he's going to have a knack, like you said, that you haven't had a lot of first round picks in a while. So what I would imagine him doing is finding some, savvy way of taking whatever first round pick that he's got of yours next, trading back, possibly, acquiring another pick later in the round, and then maybe a second or a third, and then combining whatever he just got to jump back into the first round and get 2 first round picks. It's he did that once before with us.
Okay.
I like that move. I like his savvy moves at the draft. But again, like with those last 3 years, I was just waiting for him to go, press on the gas. I was, how stacked can a pipeline get? I want to start seeing the NHL product become competitive again.
And
how's the Philly news outlets and fan base? How are they reacting to it? Is there just basically like we're burning bridges with Ron Hextall? Because there was already kind of not really much of a love lost there between Hextall and the franchise. I imagine that's even worse now, huh?
Well, between Ron and the franchise
and the fan base and the city, yeah.
Well, look, he wasn't very communicative when he's a very stoic man, right? So he's not emotional. He's not going to give a whole lot away in press conferences or anything like that. But when it comes to the fan base, when the news had broke out, I try not to pay too much attention to the extremes. I mean, but it was very loud. You had some fans who were like, "Oh, well, he's going to come in. Pittsburgh's going to tread water for the next 7 years. Good luck, F him. Whatever." Others who sat back and said, "Oh no, excuse me, he's going to do exactly what he planned on doing here, but in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's going to have another cup, and we're going to have to freaking hear about it." And so you had the doomsdayers, you had the people who were trying to discredit him. I'm kind of in between. I think he's a very smart man. He's a very patient person. He's savvy on the trade market, especially with drafting. I think he has the ability to adapt and to learn. And he's obviously walking into a different scenario than he did with the Flyers. It might be similar with the whole cap trouble and everything else, but you've got some better players on your roster now that he can build around, like a Jake Gensel, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and speaking of Jake Gensel, he's the kind of guy that can find some of those kids in the mid to later rounds.
Yeah, Gensel was a 3rd round pick. Yeah. So
yeah, he goes after a lot of Euro talent that was missed in the first, like 2nd or 3rd. He'll start picking them up in the 4th and the 5th.
And that's something that the Penguins have gone. When I was younger, it felt like the Penguins were always going after Euro players, but Shiro and Rutherford, I don't even think they drafted a Euro guy in the first 3 rounds in the last decade, honestly. So yeah,
it was kind of a Canadian bias,
and a North American bias.
Yeah. No, I didn't see any bias when it came to Hextall. I know what we needed immediately was, of course, we needed a pipeline of prospects because it'd been completely depleted. But we needed a goaltender. We've needed a goaltender for like 30.
Yeah, he's walking into the same situation.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so we needed a goaltender. It took him a couple years, but he found Carter Hart. We needed defensemen, and he'd gone out there. He got Provorov that fell back to him after the Devils decided not to take him. And Travis Sanheim was, in fact, his very first draft pick here, and nobody kind of knew who he was, who Sanheim was. And then we just started hearing good things about him. Now, I would say the best pickup, the best decision that Ron had made his time in Philadelphia was finding Phil Myers, a giant tree stalk of a kid. He went undrafted, I think, 2 years. And so Ron reached out, signed him as a free agent at that point. I mean, he was 19, 20 years old. And he's probably one of our better defensemen who's developed, I would say, the fastest. And we're looking at a pretty solid top four because of Hextall.
So that's a perfect segue to my last question. Assuming there is a hockey season, we finished this hockey season with all the COVID stuff, like we were talking off air, it's 50-50 whether we get through this whole season or not. But what's your outlook like? Where in Philly right now? What's your guys' outlook for the team, and where do you guys hope that the Flyers? I mean, like, what's your realistic expectations? And I mean, do you think this is a cup contending team, or you still think you're a year or two away from that? Or
no, I don't think they're a cup contending team. I think the defense is still a little too thin. It really depends on who you ask, right? But me, I like to be. I want to be aggressive on the trade market. I can appreciate the depth and the skill that we've got, but if you ask me, we really don't have any elite players up front other than Couturier's elite 2A playing. He's a hell of a wizard. He's going to be 30 soon. Giroux is in his twilight. Voracek, we've mentioned him. The kids, I don't think are supporting defensively as much as we'd like. So there's a little bit more inexperience there. Carter Hart is I'm giving that kid all the time and all the room that he possibly needs.
I love Hart, man. Like
watching him is incredible.
Watching him last year against us, in the games that he played against us, and then watching him in the playoffs, just kind of was one of those like, as a Penguins fan, oh crap, they've got a goalie.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And he just because of his, put it this way, last season he had in 40 of his starts, he made 30 saves in 7 of those starts. Already through, I think 9 or 10 starts, he's had to make 30 saves 7 times already. So he's getting stress test. Brian Elliott, stress test. But there, I think Hart is his rebounding, his I've never seen anybody with just such a mental trap. Nothing bothers the kid. He can give up a bad goal, but then he's going to save your ass on the next 10 saves. And then he'll go out and he might have a stinker, but I mean, the kid's 22 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm giving him all the room, all the patience in the world, because, who the hell am I to be, giving him shit for that?
Yeah. Well, Mike, again, we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate the insight. I definitely learned a lot about Hextall. I mean, you try to follow him as much as you can, but you can only follow so much. If you're really into it like us, you can only handle so many fan bases and teams. So
sure.
Again, if you want to check him out, you can check him out on Twitter. You can find him at Mikey D_O&BP. That's O and B for Orange and Black Pack. So again, Mikey D_O and BP. You can get that there. You guys are on Facebook too. The Orange and Black Pack's a Facebook page.
Yeah. Facebook page. Yep.
So cool. Mikey, again, appreciate you being on. Hopefully we'll have you on again, maybe talking some playoff hockey.
Yeah, man. I'd love it. All right. Hope it
I
turns
think
into a tire fire for you guys.
Ditto.
Take care, bud.
Thanks, Mike.
Easy.
412 Sports Talk family, what's going on? It's your guy, Eddie P. I'm sitting in MCM Studios right now with our sponsor, my man Mike Hitt. Mike, what's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? 412 Sports Talk Podcast, Pittsburgh, PA. What is up?
What we're doing is, we're a local podcast. We talk Pittsburgh sports. We're completely supported by people that are either from Pittsburgh or have ties to Pittsburgh. And even our sponsor, MCM Studios, is over in Allentown, in the heart of the city of Pittsburgh. But I wanted to bring you into the studio so you could see what Mike's got going on, and you can see a little bit of, what happens behind the scenes here at MCM Studios. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, what are you working on right now, man?
I'm working with always a stable of talented artists. Whether they're from Pittsburgh, they come to Pittsburgh to come to MCM Studios, they move here from out of town, whatever the case may be, a young, old, guy, girl, pop, rock, reggae, R&B, trap music. I just work with a lot of guys that need the love and the attention and the direction in order to get their sound and their business together and their whole artistry, in a position that is the quality and the vision that they were looking for. I kind of just help them bring all that together. So they're like, oh, or I would have been lost for the next 3 years if you wouldn't have said, hey, go do this, or sing your song like this, or write a song like this, or this is a good look for you as an artist. That's really what MCM Studios does, and what I have going on is just continually helping artists. If they get famous, they get famous. If they don't, they don't. But just helping them along on this artistic journey so they can look back, and it felt like it was worth it.
Yes. I know how much it means to be a musician and need that backup. And I'll be honest with you, Mike has been a big, big part of the business side of 412 Sports Talk and how much we've grown as a business too, helping us with the legal side of things, giving us all the tips that he's learned in 10, 11 years of business. So, like I said, I just wanted to get you guys to take a look at the studio, hear it from Mike himself, and just get a little bit of the behind the scenes of one of our sponsors, our first sponsor, MCM Studios. And you can check them out at 412mcmstudios.com. You can check them out on Facebook at MCM Studios Pittsburgh. Check Mike out on Twitter at Mike Hitman with 2 T's. Let's build this Pittsburgh community because there's a lot of cool people, a lot of talented people, and a lot of great things going on in the city. Mike, you got anything else to leave them with?
Support the people around you that are doing cool things. If you can see that they're serious and they're dedicated and they're putting the time and they're making the investment in themselves, at least make, at the very minimum, the investment of believing in them. That's what I did for 412 Sports Talk Podcast. That's what I do at the studio with the artists. Just look at your life as one big investment, and I really think by doing that, we can all help bring everybody around us up.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini tour. We'll be back with stuff like this. In the meantime, again, I'm Eddie Provident. For Mad Chad Nolan, for my man Mike Hitt, we'll catch you later.
Peace.
All right, well, welcome back to the 412 Sports Talk Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Eddie Provident. With me is Mad Chad, and with us, a special guest. This is a big one for me because I've watched him on the NHL channel. I've watched him for a few years now as the play-by-play guy for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Our main man, you can find him on Twitter, Mearsy NHL, Steve Mears. Steve, thanks for coming on, buddy. This is exciting for us.
Well, you need to raise your standards then. I'm afraid I don't have much more to offer that's going to blow out the guest list. But I know it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. We were, growing up as a Pens fan and a journalism major. Mike Lang was like my idol, and I'm sure that was the feeling for a lot of Pens fans. When you took over that role from Staggy, were you worried about being compared to those guys? And then did they give you was there any really solid advice either one of them gave you?
Well, I've gotten advice from Mike Lang throughout my whole career. When I first met him, I was doing Islander games. I met him at Nassau Coliseum, and he kind of had heard about me and knew that I was from Murraysville. So that was a big moment. I remember him walking down the hallway outside the dressing room, and I had never met him before. I felt like I knew him though, because I grew up watching games And it was like I was learning from him as a child, even though we never met. It was like through osmosis. You learn about hockey and the game and the play-by-play. So when I meet him for the first time, it was really cool. And he just always took me under his wing. Then when I went to Penguins Radio and I came to work for the Penguins the first time around, he really was a mentor for me. And anytime I had questions, I could always reach out to him. And even to this day, if I have a question about something or something that I'm working on, or just anything that has to do with just about anything in life, I can just text him and he gets back to me right away. And I'm just always going to be forever grateful for not just the inspiration. I mean, he's the only reason I got into this business, but also just the mentorship. And to be there is almost like a third parent, where if there's anything that I want to ask him, he's been a receptive audience and has been so helpful. And there's so many little nuggets. I mean, we could spend a whole show just talking about the little nuggets of things that I've learned from Mike Lang. I'll give you one little example. It's just like when you're doing play-by-play, especially now in this day, we're doing it off a monitor, so it's really difficult and it's a fast game. And I remember he said one time, just take that one extra beat to make sure you got the right guy. You know, it's 71 Malkin and not 72 Hornquist. It's just like take that one little beat. And I think that's really helped me over the years. And, it's never going to be perfect. And he's the perfectionist. I mean, I asked him one time, like, how many times have you walked away from a game and we're really satisfied with the game? Like, oh, I nailed it. And he said, oh, maybe 10 times. 10 times in 45 years, he walked away from the arena and said, nailed it. And that's just like the constant battle that goes on. But if he can say that and he can hold that high standard, then anybody can.
Well, listen, if they ever make a sudden death remake, then he can give you acting lessons too, because that's the next step now.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, he's got that. He still has that. I'm sure he still gets those royalty checks or whatever they are anytime that movie airs. But that's all a part of his legend. There's many facets to the legend of Mike Lang, and that's one of them.
So, Mearsy, not that, I mean, we all know that, there's no replacing a guy like Mike Lang, but coming in and filling those shoes and being the guy on TV for all of us. And Mike Lang has all of these catchphrases. He has all the one-liners. He has all these things that everybody knows about Mike Lang. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. That's why he's, not even just locally known, nationally known. What was it like to in that first year or two for you to like kind of carve out your niche? Because I mean, I think I can speak for most of Pittsburgh. I mean, we love listening to you on TV.
Yeah,
you do a really good job, and you've definitely you've. From Lang to Steigerwald to you has been seamless. Like, what was it like as a local guy who grew up watching the Penguins to have to carve his own way in this and kind of make your own personality and make your own voice known?
Well, I think it's an ever evolving process. I mean, I'm still a baby in this business. When you consider like the biggest names, the legendary guys are well into their 60s, if not older. So I'm still learning. I think I will always be learning and always trying to improve and carve out that niche, as you said. So it's an ever evolving process. There's a couple of things that come to mind is that one, I was actually very confident because this is my team and this is my city. So if there's one team on earth that I could call games for, I would think it's the Pittsburgh Penguins. I have a pretty good background just having lived it, where I know the history. So right from day one, when people were like, oh, are you nervous doing a game for the Penguins? I could, if there's one team I'm not going to be nervous for, it's the Penguins. I have this library of Penguin knowledge in my head just because of my childhood. And I was just obsessed with the Penguins and stats and watching every game and keeping notebooks and obviously having the hockey cards and the posters and the jerseys. And I bought the media guide at the Igloo every year and I tried to memorize that. I'd read it every day, page for page, the same formatted media guide that we get now. So as far as having that knowledge, that gives you a lot of confidence when you know that there isn't that much about the Penguins that I don't know, especially from my era of the 90s and the 2000s and that. And then the other part is the worst thing you could do is be inauthentic or have something contrived. So if I came in on day one and I started saying phrases in the way that Mike Lang does, it would sound so phony. So I think those things have to happen organically. And I think eventually you just kind of have your style and everything, but the worst thing you can do is force it. And like, if I came out there the first goal and said "Sweet Sassy Mo Lassie," like SNL did, there's like that would not play well. So it's got to be authentic. And the biggest thing with the Penguins too is that they're such a high flying, entertaining team that a lot of it is just, we just have to stay out of the way. Let the pictures tell the story. It's television. So the worst thing you can do is try to make it about yourself. And I think I'm so low on the totem pole of what this game is about. And I think the announcers are at the bottom of that list. It's about the players, the team, the history, the city, the fans, the coaches. There's so many more important elements to this league and this game and the Penguins' rich history. So a lot of times it's just try to stay out of the way, try to enhance those moments, enhance the game a little bit. And Mike Lang was the greatest at it, and it's an honor to learn from him. And as I said, I'll always be appreciative of his mentorship.
Just a quick follow up on that. Like you had mentioned, like being a fan, especially in the '90s. Was there any bit of like being starstruck, sitting next to Bob Erie every night? When you first started this, I'd imagine like being next to a guy that you grew up watching on the ice, would be kind of a weird situation to be in, the first couple of times.
I do have to pinch myself now because I do consider Bob and Borky great friends.
Borky too, yeah.
And of course I watched them and I knew how big their roles were in the 91 and 92 teams with Troy Loney to have. And that was an early lesson too, that if you want to win this cup, you've got to have players like that. Right. Bob had a tremendous career. Borky had a tremendous career. And now I get to call them friends and colleagues. And yeah, it is surreal. Sometimes you just have to pinch yourself. I think one thing that was helpful is though, I come into this job, I've been in the league now for a while. I had done Islander games for 3 years. That's when I got to know Bob and Borky quite a bit. Obviously with the division connection we saw back then, it was a heavy division connection, almost like it is now, where we were playing, the Islanders were playing the Penguins 6 times, if not more. So I got a chance to know everybody. And I think that helped lay the groundwork. I think the first game I did at the Igloo, Mario was in the dressing room. That was the first time I saw him in person and eventually got to meet him. So yeah, there was definitely that period of being starstruck and having it be surreal that I'm in the press box of the Igloo where I used to dream about maybe someday just going up there. And I used to sit in the stands as the game was going on, looking up and there's Mike Lang. I could see his light and I could see his white shirt and he's had the headset on and I'd be sitting in the C section or whatever it was of the Igloo. And if not E or F balconies and just wishing I could go up there. And then with the Islanders, I did eventually. And that was surreal. So a lot of that, by the time I came here, a lot of it had already surpassed, but it's still, it's worth just revisiting and just being thankful that I get to do this.
Definitely. Josh Yohe from The Athletic, who covers the Penguins, is a friend of ours and a regular on the show. And he has this ongoing thing where the Penguins are never boring. And I know for you, that's a good thing, especially being a fan. Either when they're not winning cups, they're either competing for cups or they're in the news all the time. And this is a great week to have you on with a new GM and a new director of hockey operations coming in. What is your expectations, like, as far as what do you think they're going to do? And do you feel like it was time maybe for a change as far as the front office goes? I know Rutherford left unexpectedly, but did you get the feeling that the change actually came at a good time, basically is what I'm asking?
I guess that'll be determined down the road. I mean, it was so surprising. I certainly was shocked when I saw that news. But Jim Rutherford was happy with the decision, and he said he felt that his time had come to an end and it was time to move on. And if he's at peace with that, then I guess it was time for some type of a transition. But you can't forget about the contributions that he had to this team, the multiple trades that he made that led directly to winning the cup in 2016, 2017. I tweeted a bunch of the names. We just can't forget Kessel, Hornquist, Daly, Cole. You just continue with Ben Lovejoy he acquired, and just like so many moves that he made to build that team. Justin Schultz, I knew I was forgetting one of the big defensemen. Schultz was a trade. Carl Hagelin.
He even got Hornquist.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many moves that he made, and all those guys were on one, if not both those teams. Ron Hextall on the 2017 team. I mean, we could just go on and on. So we just can't forget about those contributions.
Oh, not at all.
And then if he thought that his time was done and he resigns, I think it's just nice to know that he's at peace with the decision and he's doing what's best for him and his family. And now the Penguins bring in two unbelievably experienced hockey minds to usher in this new era. And the mission remains the same, but to bring in this level of talent with the resumes of Ron Hextall and Brian Burke and just decades, like over 7 decades of experience combined in this game, either in the case of Ron Hextall is a great player, or with all the different things Brian Burke has done. Hextall is an assistant GM and a general manager in Philadelphia. I think when, as usual, the Penguins, Josh is right. They're never boring. And I give them so much credit because they go for the absolute best. They will spend to the cap. They will spare no expense, use every resource possible to be one of the best teams in the game. And that's why they have 5 Stanley Cups, and that tradition continues now. You bring in 2 big names, and with the quest of winning another cup and also making sure this remains as the premier destination in hockey and one of the premier organizations in all of sports.
I know that you're not traveling with the team right now, right? Like as far as okay,
correct.
So you might not exactly have the insight that you maybe would have had, but whenever a new GM comes in, and especially now, like all these changes in the front office, do you think the guys, the players, the coaching staff, do they get anxious, excited, nervous, maybe that they know that there's probably, you got people coming in from outside of the organization now, and they might want to bring in the players and coaches and stuff that they want to be a part of this team?
Yeah, you got to think about that. I thought it was interesting that the optional morning skate the other night was fully attended, or the other morning. That's unique after 4 practice days. So yeah, maybe they want to get out there and I didn't know what to expect with the game against the Islanders on Thursday, because a lot of times these managerial big changes happen in the off season. So you don't see this type of an overhaul during the season. And I didn't know how. I thought there was a chance maybe we blow the Islanders out, but then I realized that there are no blowouts, really, certainly not in this division. And there's no easy nights that we've talked about quite a bit, and especially against the New York Islanders. So, but it was a gutsy win, and I think they have to be thinking about that kind of thing, that they want to have a good showing. You basically have new bosses, so you want to have a good showing. And I thought to win the way in which they did, showing a lot of character and having another come from behind win, and then to get the 2 points, I thought it was a good start for the Hextall Burke era and for the players who were out there who produced it.
Absolutely.
Chad brings up a good point with you not traveling with the team. How, we've focused so much on how COVID has affected the athletes, rightfully so, because they're the ones that we watch. They're the ones that are, this is all centered around. But I think an underestimated part of this is you guys have relationships with these players. You have to, as part of the media that travels with the team on a normal basis. So how's COVID changed that dynamic with your relationship with the players and the coaches? And then how different is it not traveling with them and doing these broadcasts remotely, like you said earlier, from a monitor, rather than being live and a part of the action on the away side?
Well, it's definitely a challenge. It's a different pace, a different way of life and what we're used to doing. I think that travel and being immersed with the team, seeing them on the plane and in the hotel and in whatever city that we're in, you miss that, because that's where you really get to know the guys. They get to know you. Even in the locker room, when we have the media availability, everybody knows the best stuff that you get is when the microphones are turned off, there are no cameras present. And now it's everybody. If there's any interview going on or any type of conversation, it's kind of like this one, where you're having a lot of Zoom interaction, and you have a lot of these virtual conversations, and everything is with a camera. So it's a shame that right now we're not getting that type of access. We're not getting those little nuggets, those stories, and having a conversation. So much of this game and so much about just the daily interactions. It's just about getting to know people and getting to know their background and just sitting down. I don't have like a 30-minute interview with any of the players formally, but you get the chance during the season, maybe for a few minutes, just sit down. Who was your hockey idol? Tell us about your family, your background. What did your parents do? How did you get started playing in goal? How did you get your first set of goalie pads? Those sorts of things. And we can sprinkle those into the broadcast. I'm reading Doc Emmerich's book, which is great. And he's the best at it. He would always put in so much time getting to know the players off air, off mic. And he would find a way to weave those stories in. And it's a fast-paced game. There isn't much downtime to begin with, especially on television. You got replays, but he was the best at just weaving those little stories in. And it's a shame because right now it's harder to get that information, but it's still out there. Like some of the stuff we've gotten about P.O. Joseph and his background and how he got started playing the game, his brother Matthew, and so you try to bring some of those and those human interest stories to the broadcast, and on a lot of nights, if the game is good enough, then you don't even have time to use that stuff anyway. But as we know, not every game is going to be like a 6-5 thriller, although it seems like we've had a lot of those here this year or something close to it.
Last one from me, Steve Mears. Thanks so much for joining us again here on the 412 Sports Talk podcast. We had some interesting reports from Darren Drager, who's usually a pretty reliable source, said that he had some reports of Sidney Crosby potentially down the line not ending his career in Pittsburgh and wanting his legacy to be allowing them to use him to rebuild for the future. I don't buy that. I talked to a few people a few acquaintances that we probably share that didn't buy that. Do you ever foresee Sidney Crosby playing for another NHL team?
No, I don't. I guess anything is possible when you think of some of the trades that have been made. Everyone talks about Gretzky, and hey, the Penguins traded Jaromir Jagr when he was by far the greatest player in the world. But those were way different circumstances. Both of them were way different circumstances. Marty Brodeur played for the St. Louis Blues. So, I guess, again, anything is possible. But no, I do not see that happening. I think he's aware of his legacy in Pittsburgh, and also Mario Lemieux's legacy in Pittsburgh of being a Penguin throughout his entire career. And I also think he appreciates, meaning Crosby, the fact that the Penguins will always try to win with him. And the mandate is to win the Stanley Cup. There's no rebuild from scratch like the Red Wings or the Rangers, like blow it all up and start from zero. I think David Morehouse and Ron Hextall and Brian Burke, they've made it very clear that the mandate and the mission do not change, and they want to win Stanley Cups. And so that's the high standard that has been set for the Penguins. I think Crosby appreciates that. First and foremost, he wants to win. He's with a winning organization. He knows they're not going to spare any expense. As I said earlier, they will do whatever it takes to win, use every single resource. So I think Crosby appreciates that. And he wants his legacy to be here in Pittsburgh. So I'd be shocked if any of that were true. And I just like, how could you trade him? Like, how are you going to win that trade? It's like the old saying. And it's like, you think about the Joe Thornton trade or the Gretzky trade or the Auger trade, it's like you're never going to win that trade. So it's not going to be helping the Penguins out in any way. So it's a bit ridiculous.
I was guessing if something financial came up like the Yager situation, or if it was a Ray Bork situation where he never won a cup and it's like, hey, here's your chance to go win the cup. We're going to do you this favor. But yeah, I as long as the Penguins are showing a commitment to win, I don't see any reason why. He already has 3 cups here, so I don't see why he would want to even partially taint his legacy by going to another team for a year or two.
Right. He'll have the chance to win here. I'm not saying the Penguins are going to be Stanley Cup contenders every single year for the rest of his career, but that at least the standard is going to be there, which has been set by the Pens organization. And I think that relationship, especially with Mario Lemieux, is just, it means too much to Crosby, the relationship with the fans, with the community, with all the work that he's done in this city and in the community in general. So, and he's happy here. He loves playing for the Penguins. He loves living here. So I've never detected anything less than just a rock solid bond that Crosby has with the Pens organization and with the city. So I really don't think there's much to read into that type of report.
Well, Mearsy, my last one, I'm going to veer off from the hockey talk for my last question. And I've been trying to get a straight answer from anybody, and I haven't yet. So I'm moving out your way in a couple of weeks. I'm moving to your old stomping. I'll be in Monroeville, so right down the road from Murraysville.
Nice.
All right.
Okay.
So where is the best? So I grew up in Hazelwood. I'm a Minio's guy. Where's the best pizza on the east side of town, out by Murraysville, Monroeville? Where do I got to go to get the best pie?
Oh boy.
Yeah, putting you on the spot on this one, man.
I was just in Murraysville, and I can't speak for Monroeville because I like Monroeville, and I grew up going to the Monroeville Mall and everything. I'm old enough to remember when they had an ice skating rink in the Monroeville Mall. So I'm old enough for that, and I spent a lot of time in Monroeville. There are great restaurants there. I think I have to go with the very hometown favorite, and I was in Murraysville visiting my parents for the Super Bowl, and we had Donna Lynn's Pizza in Murraysville, and they have been going strong since I was a wee little kid. I remember like little birthday parties and having Donna Lynn's Pizza, and they're still going strong. That tells me that they're doing something right. Any restaurant, if you're still around, and there are a bunch of them in Murraysville and Monroeville.
I'm going to check them out then. Donna Lynn's.
It's right off 22. I think there's another one somewhere else. They might have a couple of locations, but did a great job with the Super Bowl pizza. And I really think there's something to be said. If you are still having the customers and you're doing a great job for what we're talking about, like 3 decades, then you must be doing something well. I lived in New York, so I'm very picky about pizza, but I think Donna Lynn's does an unbelievable job.
Yeah, my wife's family's from Monroeville too, but they always go to Fox's and like Domino. They're chain. Yeah, they're the chain pizzas. I like the hole in the wall. No one knows about it except for the locals. That's what I'm. So I never even heard of Donna, so I'm gonna have to check them out. So there we go.
I gotta give them a plug because it was perfect for the Super Bowl party. But yeah, there's a bunch and there's a lot. Monroeville. I mean, I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. There are just so many places over the years where you go. And my favorite, probably the restaurant I've been to the most in my life would be the Shogun in Monroeville. Which is off the hill from the Monroeville Mall. And I love Japanese food. I love sushi and I love hibachi and all that. That to me is still the best. I lived in New York. I've been all over, had travel a lot. That is still the best. And that's another one that I went to as a kid. I might have been like 8 years old, and they're still going strong. So for me, that's the best hibachi that I've had, and they do a great job as well. And not much has changed. It might as well be 1989 all over again when I walk in. But it's fantastic. So there's one example in Monroeville, and I'll give them a plug as well because I think they do an awesome job.
Pugliano's is always where we go for with my wife's family. I think they're right off a Golden Mile Highway. They're another good one. But yeah, so he's a hockey guy. He's a Pittsburgher. He knows it. He knows a way around his pizza pies. A man of many talents. And I do want one more thing. Don't sell yourself short when you say earlier in the conversation you said you're not what people remember, or you're not the important part of the broadcast. I can't stress this enough. Even the other night watching the Malkin that Malkin goal with 18 seconds left, I was at my buddy's house and we're watching the game, and whether you realize it, and I'm sure this crosses your mind, you guys are the soundtrack for us. Yeah. And so don't ever sell yourself short, man, because Pittsburgh loves you. And, we really, it just makes the game easier to watch when we have somebody that we enjoy listening to. And you and Bob Erie are a great tag team. So we appreciate everything you do for the city and for the team. We appreciate everything you do for the fans, and we especially appreciate you being on the show, man.
Absolutely.
It's been an honor. It's been awesome.
You mentioned soundtrack. I mean, just having lived it through the best. I mean, Mike Lang, he enhanced all those great moments in the 90s, and I could listen to those calls, especially the Lemieux goal in 92 and Game 1 against the Blackhawks. I could listen to that like it's a favorite song. I might as well have it in my music on my phone because I could just listen to it over and over again. And that was the soundtrack that I had. And to think that there's some kid out there who thinks of me as a soundtrack to Crosby and Malkin and doing all the great things that they're doing on the ice. And if I'm able to enhance that in any way, it is a surreal feeling. And I'm just always appreciative of getting the chance to, I'm just happy I get to go get in for free. That's all I wanted. That's all I could have ever asked for. And it is really a dream come true. And I tell everybody, we have like a broadcasting program with kids coming to games, and I tell them all the time, any dream is attainable. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous if I, just as a Penguin fan who get to do this and was lucky enough to sit in this chair. So it doesn't matter, whatever it is, any dream is attainable.
Well, hey, here's hoping that Stanley Cup number 6 is called by Steve Mears, right?
Hey, I'll take it. It doesn't matter when it is. That's fine with me. I was lucky. I got to do the international. I got to call the 16 and 17 Cups. It was the international feed. I did that with Kevin Weeks. And that was another thing where it's just like we were standing on the ice and the Penguins winning the Cup. And to see that moment like that, especially 2016, after they had been through all the heartbreaking losses and the high expectations and to win it like that and to be behind the microphone, even though it wasn't really a Penguin broadcast, but it was a different one. Just to be in the building was so cool. So I hope I get to be there again whenever the next one is.
Well, Mearsy, we appreciate you, man. Again, not that we need to tell our listeners this, but if you want to follow him, he's on Twitter at Mearsy NHL. You can listen to him every night. There's a Penguins game on AT&T Sports Network. Steve Mears, everybody. Steve, thanks again, man. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Anytime. It was a lot of fun, guys. Great talking hockey with you.
Absolutely.
Take care, bud.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to 412 Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you like the show, leave us a review, and be sure to tell a friend about your source for all things Pittsburgh sports. Find us on Twitter at MadChad412 and at Eddie_P_412.